not only the power of love, the practice of love. And at the same time, I was developing my own meditation practice and my own yoga practice. And I remember having this revelation one morning to say, when I'm on my cushion, when I'm on my mat, it's just me. But in love, this is a more interdependent practice. It's one thing to lean into the tension of the pose. It is one thing to come back to, to let ruminating not take over your meditation practice. It's one thing to do that with yourself. But love is much more complex because you don't get to control the other individuals. And so that's when I literally said out loud, love is a practice.
Hey everyone, it's Lynn Durham, and you're listening to Create Magic at Work. Create Magic at Work is on a mission to equip senior leaders with tools they need to be a true quantum leader and actually understand what that means. Improve employee engagement, retain top talent, and transform your workplace culture to have less drama and stress. So let's start making magic. Hey everyone. Welcome to Create Magic at Work. Today, I have an amazing guest for all of you, and we're going to really get into the real, I don't know how to say it, of leadership with love. Today, Jasmine Bellamy is joining us, and she is the founder and spiritual director of Love 101 Ministries, which is dedicated to the theology and practice of love, and is the host of the Call to Love Experience. She is also the former vice president of merchandising, planning, and allocation, and head of community and culture at Reebok, and the creator and co-facilitator of Courageous Conversations. Clearly, she's in the right place today for the Create Magic at Work community, Courageous Conversations, a platform that inspires communal culture transformation. Jasmine earned a BS in Marketing Management from Syracuse University, Master of Business Administration from Fordham University, and Master of Arts in Theology from Fuller Seminary, where she is pursuing a doctorate in global leadership, focusing on the redemptive imagination of the marketplace. Create Magic at Work is an international global community, so you are exactly where you need to be today. Jasmine, welcome to Create Magic at Work.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. So good to be here with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I know we've had a really amazing, heartfelt conversation offline. So I was like, you have to come on the show and we have to share all of this with everyone. First, I want to start off. Is there anything I missed in your bio or that you want to tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself or your journey?
Sure. Thank you for that invitation. I think I would add that my love practice, what I committed to for, transforming my own life, ultimately is what became the foundation of the culture transformation work that I did. I essentially came to work as my full self for the first time and started to create magic at work. So I just think it's important to emphasize that it really started internally with me first, transforming my own life before I was able to then be in a position to invite others to be transformed as well and transform my context.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're comfortable, could you tell us about that moment? Because there's a lot of chatter on LinkedIn and in corporate organizations about we want everyone to be able to bring their full authentic self to work. And often I think people find that has a lot of different ideas or rules with it. Like bring your full self to work, but make sure you look like this when you show up and you speak like us at the table.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So I would love to hear, if you're open to it, that personal moment or discovery and how that went for you when you really did show up.
Yeah, so I love that question. I've been in the industry for 31 years and it took me 27 years to come to work as my full self. So, that just kind of speaks to what you're talking about. And it was a couple of things. One, it was me, the journey that I was on, having committed to my own inner work, and then also having a supportive context. So I was hired by a sponsor who someone I trusted with my career and someone who trusted me with their career. And so there was a natural safety in that, and a courage that was, or courageousness that was built up to be able to do that. I remember walking into work on my first day with a mantra that I actually still use to today. May I be open, may I be curious, may I be present, may I be a catalyst. And so that was the energy I was walking in the door with. And so I would say that also met a place where I felt safe to be able to really unleash that. But I had to be mentally ready to do that too. So it's definitely inner work and it's also context. Both of those two things working together. And then really for me, an invitation to lead what at that time was called United Against Racism Change Management. That invitation then led me to be able to use all of me to really, I don't want to say solve the problem, right? But to attend to the work at hand in a way that I wouldn't have been able to do so if I left part of me at home. So that's it. So it's definitely multidimensional for sure. But it requires freedom. It requires freedom of the individual to be able to express themselves, and also freedom from the context to not judge them for being who it is that they are called to be. So, and what that dance looks like. I often say that, I feel like I'm multilingual, right? And that that I can adjust and pivot to what's appropriate for the environment that I am in. I don't think that means code switching per se, but there is an ability to know what's called for in the moment that I do think is required, but it doesn't make me less me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Something that stood out for me in you sharing all of that is that you were very intentional ahead
Yes.
of time about the way you were going to show up.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, an important reminder for all of us, that who do I want to be in this moment?
Yeah.
And how do I want to show up? And if I look back on the movie of my life,
Mm-hmm.
how would I want Jasmine or Amy to be in this movie as
Yeah.
I step through into this space? So it's kind of a nugget I pulled, or a gem, I should
Yeah.
say, the
Yeah.
GEM, from what you were just sharing. I want to get into Love 101 Ministries a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to go down that route? What is that about? And how does that play out in the workplace for you? Because
Yeah.
I believe that we are on the verge of a really huge wave coming into the workplace of bringing spirituality into the workplace. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
next wave,
Mm-hmm.
going beyond EQ. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I love that you said beyond EQ, because I believe this call on my life as the loving leader is meta emotional intelligence for sure. But it started with my own personal crisis. I had been married for 22 years, chose after lots of work to leave. And so it was in the early stages of that separation that I literally sensed that there was love that I had yet to understand. And so I became love student, and I really literally had a 2-hour writing practice, and was very intentional about thinking about love in a more comprehensive way, and realizing I had never really given much attention to that. I think of the things that people say they never got a crash course on. We're not taught how to be parents, and we're not really taught how to love, or rather we learn from cultural cues. A lot of times the things that we learn about love actually aren't love. Their neuroses and projection and all those things. Also, culturally, we so lean into romantic love,
Mm-hmm.
and that's so limiting. And so for me, as I became this student of love, I really understood the power of love. And not only the power of love, the practice of love. And, and at the same time, I was developing my own meditation practice and my own yoga practice. And I remember having this revelation one morning to say, when I'm on my cushion, when I'm on my mat, it's just me. But in love, this is a more interdependent practice.
Mm.
It's one thing to lean into the tension of the pose. It is one thing to come back to let ruminating not take over your meditation practice. It's one thing to do that with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But love is much more complex because you don't get to control the other individuals. And so that's when I literally said out loud, love is a practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood that it became, what's my intention? What are the fundamentals of love, like openness and curiosity and acceptance and non-judgment and forgiveness and grace, and creativity and accountability and truth, all of these things. And then I was like, okay, what does it look like for me to live like that in every single encounter with myself and with others? And I started to realize that when I did that, it was a practice because I didn't always do so well. And so it gave me an opportunity for not rumination, but self reflection to
Mm-hmm.
say, how do you feel about how you showed up in that situation? Or what's happening in this situation right now? What might love do?
Mm-hmm.
And so as I really put it into practice, then I could see me change and I saw my circumstance and my context change as well. And so it wasn't until maybe a year or so later. And so I was writing a lot, like literally just writing every day, this 2-hour practice, building what now is like a 250-page document, right? Like just everywhere that I was finding love in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And about a year later, I felt compelled that this was not something I could just keep to myself, that I had to share it. And so my context really is social media. So I took the things that I would reflect on and almost do mini devotionals, if you want to call it, and share them, and just started to build community of people who were inspired by love and wanted to learn more about love and or just wanted to talk about love. And so that just has really continued to grow since 2018. 2019 is when I first wrote the first social media post. 2020 is when I had my first live event with folks because I had done my work enough to be responsible to hold space for folks. And then in 2022, I launched the Call to Love Experience Live, which is a monthly communal practice. And so I'm in the latter half of season 2. And it's just been a delight to be in conversation with other people who are putting love into practice and making it really practical for people.
Mm-hmm.
So so I'd say all of that to say it was the understanding the fundamental and the foundation of love and how that shows up in the workplace that became the invitation for me in the last 4 years. What does it look like to be more open to knowing people's stories? What does it look like to be more open to share yourself with others? What does it look like to also be accountable, to also be encouraging and present and curious about others? And how does that become a part of how you lead? And so the more I did that, I started to see me transform as a leader. How my team responded to me was different. And so I say that to say that this journey has just pulled out a different quality in me that has cultivated a team and an impact in a way that has just transcended anything else I had done in this 31-year career. And I know the difference is love. I'm different. And so how I show up as a leader is different. What my team's experience from me are different. And what I would say what further transformed it is after the murder of George Floyd and being asked to lead United Against Racism Change Management, I knew that love was the only answer to figure it out, how to create a culture that was that was the only answer was love. And I do operate under the assumption, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. says that love is the most durable power. And I believe that and live that way. So that to me meant marketplace cultures that are dominated by fear, that love is greater than that. Marketplace cultures that operate in shame, love is greater than that. And so, what does it look like to meet love in those kinds of transformative moments? Love is courageous, all of these things. And so I just really became very committed to being the embodiment of love in the workplace. And so I went beyond just inspiring and transforming my team. I literally changed the culture of my team and the way we interacted with each other, the way we engaged each other, the way we created freedom for people to show up as their full selves, and the creativity that got unleashed in them when they did. But it also took me to a whole nother level where now I'm becoming the culture and love leader for an entire organization. So it went beyond, my actual job, and it really elevated me. I spoke at a conference recently, and after my presentation, one of the women came to me. She said, "You are the loving leader," and I was like, "I am. Yeah, I am." And so it's just so humbling and so beautiful and so powerful all at the same time. And at the same time, somehow something I can carry at ease because it is my practice. And, our mantra at Love 101 is love is a practice. What we practice, we become. And so this journey of practicing love every single day, in every single encounter, and becoming more like love is not only transformed my life, but it's transformed my culture.
One of my favorite definitions of spiritual intelligence is the ability to make wise and compassionate decisions while maintaining inner and outer peace, even when I'm under great stress. And that's kind of what all of the skills of SQ roll up to, is like, can I live this definition a higher percentage of time in my life? And an overarching theme of that is separating our ego from our higher self. And the higher self is that place, by definition, as an SQ coach, is that place within you that comes from wisdom, compassion, and love. And when I would share that, I always was kind of like, and love, because we're talking about the corporate space. And even I had a bit of a reaction to like love at corporate. Like, I worked in some hardcore sales environments. I was the only woman on the team, and like sitting in front of the men I used to work with, hey everybody, we're going to bring love to this space. I could just anticipate, like, what is Amy talking about today? Or, what is Jasmine talking about today? However, the way that you just described it and the way that you have defined it, because I see it a lot more often on LinkedIn, like, let's lead with love. We've got to get really clear on what that means. And I love how you just brought some really good clarity as far as what that means for culture transformation. It comes with accountability. It comes with courage. It comes with curiosity. It comes with non-judgment. It comes with holding space for others. There was a lot of things that I remember that you shared. And anyways, I just want to echo that back to you and share that. And I want to shift a little bit into this. So I just kind of referenced the hypermasculine culture that a lot of us might find ourselves in the workplace. Where do you see this all going in these spaces?
Oh, there's so much you just said. I want to go back for a second, and I use this to pull it forward. And I'm going to be super transparent and say that I am putting in conversation two voices that I was sitting in last week and was so encouraged by. And that's Richie Davidson and Dan Siegel. They were in conversation with Dr. Pam King on her podcast Within Four. And so I'm super intrigued by science, right? And particularly in this work of love. because
Mhm.
I do know so much that what you just talked about too is neurologically based. And so like I understand how all of that is a part of how we can compose ourselves to practice love even in great stress. And one of the things they were talking about was that one, they were excited that the word love itself was being named. And they said that in the if I combine their words together, that love is where compassion was 25 years ago in terms of science. So they were like, this is the next frontier, essentially. And I was like, great, because I've been getting ready. So, so I think from a science perspective, science is this place about what is this thing called love and how is it connected to thriving and flourishing. And so when, as you shared in the intro, my work as a doctoral student is focused on the redemptive imagination of the marketplace. And so for me, I am so clear about naming what the marketplace has been built on. And it was built on dehumanization.
Mhm.
And if you put that in a conversation, what you just said, it was also absent of women at the table, absolutely absent of marginalized people at the table. And so there's a domination of maleness that was shaping, that they were literally the architects of the marketplace that we have now inherited. And
Mhm.
so part of it is the just understanding all of that, that those things all are at play. And again, because love is not in the practice of demonizing. It's not, it's just to say that that's what shaped us. And where do we want to go from here? And so if flourishing might be a goal, if thriving is a goal, it requires different inputs. It requires an unlearning and a relearning so that there are new ways of being in the marketplace. I've gotten to the place that my job is not to transform capitalism. That is beyond my scope as this one human being.
Mhm.
However, what I can do because of my lived experience and what I actually saw happen in my work environment is I can create another way of being in that marketplace that has the outcomes of flourishing. And this is the beauty of it, the flourishing of the individuals, the people that are the resource in the company will unlock the potential for the overall company. And so there's the synergy that's at work when you have people who are coming to work fully themselves, and bringing all of their gifts, right?
Mhm.
And that together we achieve more. I think one of the things that I've in my framework of the loving leader, I talk about what it is to be an illuminator, which comes out of Dave Brooks' current book. But this idea of what does it look like for us to bring out the light in the people that we work with, and how that has a real, tangible, concrete, material impact to what we're able to produce together. And so it's not that I'm saying we shouldn't accomplish things or have goals or whatever, but it's the way of being that can be very different that produces a different outcome. And when you put all of that in conversation with what is happening in our culture right now, a culture where the World Health Organization and our Surgeon General talks about the epidemic of loneliness and depression, those things are bearing their weight on our productivity in the workforce and the marketplace. And so this idea of bringing love to it, it's able to meet that and transform it as a transforming agent. And so not fixing it,
Mhm.
right? But how do we bring awareness that that is what the heaviness that people are coming to work? How is it that we become illuminators? How is it that, love is relational? So that loneliness gets met with connection. And so how does that then transform and bring out the light of those individuals? And again, then there's a ripple effect in terms of the results that it has on the marketplace.
Yeah, there's a philosopher and a physicist that I just love because she pioneered a lot of work in the spiritual intelligence space in the workplace for the past probably like 2 decades. Her name's Dana Zohar. And she wrote a book called The Quantum Leader. And inside that book, there's a scale that she shows. It's called the Scales of Motivation from Ian Marshall. And everything that you're describing is the quantum leader. So in this scale, you can see, you're like, I'm not here to like one person change capitalism, but what I can do is operate from my highest self a
That's right.
higher percentage of time. And there's actual data that shows that ripples out to the people around you. And so just by you operating from your higher self, by default, other people will show up from their higher self when they're in your presence.
Yeah,
And that will continue to ripple out to when they go home,
that's
to
right.
their communities, to the planet, and then to humanity itself. And so I think that is an encouraging thing for all of us to hear, because sometimes these issues or these problems can feel really overwhelming. And then we just throw our hands up and say, I can't do anything about this. I just got to go to work and pay my bills and go home. Like, this is way too much for me. Turn it off, turn my head. I can't. And the most encouraging part of what you're sharing, like lived experience, is look, as long as I do my inner work and really get clear on what love means to me, I can show up from my higher self. And that's all I need to do. I
Yeah.
can be that calming and healing presence, which is skill 20, by the way, in SQ. And and it will just continue to ripple out. And that's the change agent piece,
Yeah.
right? And the other thing I want to just highlight that you shared is it doesn't have to be perfect. And if I make a mistake, I can recognize, repair, recover, and radically self forgive. And it's a daily practice.
A daily
So,
practice.
yeah. And anyone listening that wants to have courageous conversations, that wants to be a leader that leads with love or from higher self or from inner wisdom and compassion, however you want to frame that, I think that's really important to highlight, that we're not going to get it right every time, and that it's a daily practice and a life journey.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to shift again because we had so much that we wanted to talk about today. We got into a conversation offline about this energy kind of in the consciousness that we've seen with a lot of us that are on the spiritual path, bringing spirituality to the workplace. And it's kind of, you actually touched on it in the beginning when you were talking about meditating and doing yoga by yourself and how great that felt. And the call for love to show up in the presence and relationship,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's romantic, whether it's work partnership, whatever that is. And we were talking about one phrase in particular that I think I even have an affirmation in the deck. I let go of what no longer serves me, and how this phrase has been used to the point where possibly there's some avoidance happening.
Yeah.
Do you want to comment on that?
I would love to. Thank you. So I've heard that phrase 100 times, and I really do honor where people are coming from. So I do. I do. I can understand that people want peace. I get it. But as you said, it can also be a tool of avoidance. It can be a tool of control. It can be a tool that is dismissive and dishonoring. And so those are the things where I would say, is that loving? And the other piece is that love is not self serving. And so the idea that we would dismiss things that don't serve us are antithetical to love in the first place. What that is not meaning is that we are doormats.
Mm-hmm.
What that is also not saying is that we don't have boundaries. But also, our boundaries are not things that we are enforcing other people to live by. Our boundaries are for ourselves to know how to live our lives in spaces that are more life-giving, and figuring out what the ebb and flow of that is, and noticing in your body when you can sense that this is not a good place for me versus, oh, this feels life-giving, and making those kinds of choices. That's for us. It's not for us to regulate other people by. And so those are the things that I'm seeing as I hear words like that or terms like that played out, that we're using them as weapons, and love is not a weapon in that sense. So so I just feel like it sounds good, but it's actually creating a divisiveness as opposed to love that unifies, and also a love that's not isolating. Like, love is interdependent. It is about seeing the gifts. It's also honoring, it's self-honoring. So I think the idea of, am I in a situation that is causing me harm,
Mm-hmm.
that is not honoring me? I would almost like to change serving to the things that don't serve me versus the things that are not honoring me, because I am a gift to be honored in terms of my humanity, all that I am and everything that I bring to the table. And so bringing myself to to places where I'm dishonored, that is not good stewardship of my own life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the shift. It may seem like a subtle word change, but it means everything. And also, one of the things we talked about too that I think is very much connected to this is that we've not arrived somewhere. We're no, everybody's on a journey, whether we're aware of it or not. And so what I've also seen happening is the snubbing of people who are not where we are, and all of those kinds of things too. And again, love doesn't operate in those kinds of spaces. Love is about actually honoring the gift in the other as well. Love is about the freedom of allowing them to be exactly who they are, however that connects with you or doesn't. And so how can we navigate situations that may cause us tension, but with grace, and still with honoring the human that's in front of us?
Yeah. And who are we to judge someone else's path? Or who
Correct.
are we to intervene on someone else's journey and say, no, 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 it's this way,
That's
just
right.
because this is the path I walked? I mean,
That's
we
right.
could be interfering with a beautiful mistake that's about to be made, that could be the stepping stone to something great.
Yeah.
And that, what you're saying to me is capacity. Like,
Yes.
we're practicing all of these skills. We're practicing love. We're practicing making wise and compassionate decisions so we can have capacity in these stressful times, and we can maintain inner peace and make wise and compassionate decisions even under great stress,
Yeah.
because we've been practicing.
Yeah.
And that moment comes up for you to do that, rather than to dissociate and step away and say, oh, I can't be around this energy, or like
To be honest, right? I think that's where the inner work and self-reflection come from.
Mhm.
Can you sit with yourself and examine? Like, one of the other things we practice a lot is self-delusion. So can we sit with ourselves and say, okay, how did I show up there? What's underneath how I responded? What am I now ready to learn about myself that maybe I wasn't before? If I connect the dots of these things that are happening, what is it that I'm learning and becoming? So I think that that requires also a posture of humility, as opposed to that I'm the knower of all things, and in my way is the only way. Like it releases all of that. Like, how might that other person be seeing it? If I can think about how this exchange happened, what might have been the story they were telling themselves? What is the story I've been telling myself? It operates with so much more openness and grace, as
Mhm.
opposed to this black or white, right or wrong, kind of dichotomy. And so, we forget that we see things as we are, and so does the other person. And so it communication becomes really important to be able to say, oh, like I didn't mean that, or oh, I understand you received it that way. Like that's where, to me, curiosity is the best thing to help us really figure out maybe what's going on under the covers that we just haven't been able to discern.
Yeah. Yeah, really good. Complexity of thought and perspective taking. That you're such a true wise and effective change agent. That's the, hold the opposing views in the same space and create win-win solutions, look for root cause, all of those things.
And paradox, right? Being comfortable with paradox.
Mm-hmm.
I love a both and. Both and.
Yeah. Paradox. Living in the knowing that your life is extremely profound and yet a tiny piece of the history of the universe.
And it's unfolding. It's unfolding.
Yeah. I'm going to pull a card for you and for all the listeners today. Get a message. This one's peeking out at me. Of course. We got sunflowers today. This is such a
coming.
So we got productivity. So, universe is calling us to, but the affirmation on the card is, I make time to recognize the achievement of others.
Mm-hmm.
Under productivity. I mean, I think this is a really great way to ask you, because we've talked about leading with love and what that really means in the workplace today. So who can someone acknowledge this week for their productivity and achievements, but in a way that it's leading with love? Yes.
I am all about honoring the gift of the human in front of me and literally telling them, so whether it is, that hearing that they did something from somebody else, like, oh, so-and-so did this really well today. And I've been watching them, they're working really hard and they've done this super complex thing, and honoring them, going to that person and saying, like, I see you. And being able to celebrate them. I do think too often we just take people for granted, and letting people know that you see them and honoring them for the commitment they made, and it's funny, productivity, not for productivity's sake, but for value creation. Those are the things to me that they're such investments in people. People want to be seen, known, valued, and understood and loved. And being able to acknowledge that you see somebody goes a really, really long way.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for the reminder. So everyone listening, take Jasmine's advice and help someone feel seen this week and beyond at work. I think it's one of the most important gifts we can give, rather than waiting for someone's last day to give them a pizza party or clear your desk. Okay, thanks, bye. Or whatever, here's thank you, or here's your recognition party. I mean, if we could just foster that throughout the entire experience, that is a really nice thing to do. So, Jasmine, if people want to connect with you and learn more about your work and read all of your beautiful writing that you do, how can they connect with you?
Oh, thank you for asking that. Definitely, you can find me on LinkedIn, Jasmine Bellamy. That's definitely one place that a lot of my articles, particularly regarding the marketplace, you'll find there. But then also the Love 101 community, you can join us on Instagram or Facebook. And also our monthly practices, you can find them live on YouTube as well. All of it under Love 101 Ministries.
Amazing. Jasmine, thank you for being a guest today, and thank you for helping to send some magic to everyone.
Thank you, Amy. I appreciate all that you're doing. It's been such a delight to get to know you.
Thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming back every week to listen to a new episode of Create Magic at Work, and really helping to support and advocate for healthy leaders, workplaces, and lives for all of us. If you want any information on how to connect with me, click on the link in the show notes. You'll get access to all of the social media links for Create Magic at Work. Stay following along for more amazing episodes where we help you improve productivity and profitability in the workplace and decrease stress. Sending magic to everyone, and see you next time.